Okay, I think I'm going live here on YouTube. This is great. I just wanted to come on and talk a little bit about yesterday's events. Let me flip this over here. It was a tough day, obviously. One of the things that hit me most about Charlie Kirk's assassination is not that we lost a fighter for the Republican Party or for Trump or anything like that. Yes, he was those things, but most of all, what did he do? How did he found his organization? He went to college campuses and he set up a tent and he asked people to prove him wrong, and they came to the microphone. And you'll hear in the next few days lots of quotes of Charlie Kirk, and many of them are fantastic. I share his faith, and so I really was pleased at how well he held up the standard that said, Jesus is the way. But one of the quotes you probably won't hear, but was present at many of his talks, was when someone who came up and disagreed with him and on the microphone, and the audience tried to boo them and shut them down by shouting them down, he would say, no, 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 let them speak. And that captures the Charlie Kirk that I knew and followed online. So that's what I'm about. We can disagree on campus, but the point is, dialogue has to happen. Another one of his quotes was, when talking stops, violence starts. And we saw that yesterday. So it's a heavy day, it's a heavy topic, but I just wanted to come on and kind of give some of my feelings on this, encourage people. I know a lot of our students, it's certainly a lot of that age group, are devastated right now. And what has this taught them? We don't want them to be discouraged. We don't want them to get the wrong message from this event. We want them to pick up the mantle that Charlie Kirk left behind and put that on their shoulders and carry forth the dialogue mantle, that they need to go forward and follow his example, to engage in speech. The answer to speech you dislike is more speech, not violence. And so we want these 20-somethings to be encouraged that the principles that he stands for will hold no matter what the outcome. No matter if one is taken out, if you will. That he had an eternal perspective, and I'm confident that he has reached his goal of being in God's presence for eternity. And it was that motivated him in many ways to start his organization. And then, as he felt his organization, Turning Point USA, was focused on political solutions, which are important, they're not ultimately important. You can live in the freest country on earth and still be lost. And he had a passion for people to know the truth about Jesus Christ and the Christian faith. And so he started Turning Point Faith, an organization that is very similar to what I've been working with for the past 12 or 13 years, which is Ratio Christi. So I wanted to introduce people to Ratio Christi who are not familiar with that. You can see that on my hat. You can go to ratiochristi.org and you can see our main page here, and it's cultivating thoughtful Christianity on campus. That's one of our principles. And so we have weekly dialogues. We get together and we discuss the issues. We don't, shout at each other and everything. We take the toughest questions that students will have, and we engage them. And so this is our principle of more speech, of bringing dialogue about the Christian faith to the college campus, and to engaging people that we disagree with gentleness and respect, as we're taught in 1 Peter 3:15. Let me go over that verse, because that's where the word apologetics comes from. It's the Greek word apologia. So Peter encourages Christians who are being persecuted in the Roman Empire to always be ready to give an answer or to give a defense. That's that word apologia, so apologetics, to give a defense for the hope they have within them. But do this with gentleness and respect. And so I think that's the key right there, is to come to your opponents with gentleness and respect. Even in this situation where somebody may be cheering on Charlie Kirk's death, I have no conception how somebody could be so twisted in their heart that they would cheer the loss of a father to these two little girls, or a husband to his wife Erica. If you're excited about his death, you need to check yourself. Your heart is hurting, and you don't even know it. You've been given up to a depraved mind, and that's a risky situation. So you may think this is a political victory, but don't sacrifice your heart on the altar of politics. This is a tragic event, and I think if you think this is a good thing, you need to check your heart, because it is in the wrong place. And I will still engage with you in dialogue, but I will oppose you. If you think then, if you're that kind of person who's going to put politics above everything else, including someone's life, you have no business in higher education. So this is a message to my fellow professors, many on the left, who may see this as a great thing. Higher education, one of our principles is rational discourse, dialogue. That is exactly what Charlie Kirk stood for. You may not have liked his support for Trump, and maybe your hatred for Trump has distorted your view of everything, including a man's life. Erica's husband, these little girls, their daddy is dead. Don't cheer that. And if you feel like you need to cheer that, consider the role you have as a professor on a college campus, to tell your students we need to have rational discourse. And yet you're doing the most irrational thing by cheering on someone's death. This is a problem. And so I think we need to address that. We need to be gentle and respectful with each other. We need to engage in dialogue. And that's what we do at our Ratio Christi meetings. We also table every Tuesday. You can see, you'll find us out there on the mall. Look for the Ratio Christi tent here on campus. They're on campuses all across the country. And engage them. They're there to get into discussions with people who they disagree with. So we love to have people come by our table and ask us the toughest questions they can think of about the Bible, about Christianity, or just about life. Is there a meaning to life? That's one of people's deepest questions. In fact, there's 4 major categories of questions that people have. Origins. Where did this world come from? How did it come to be? Where did I come from? So what's the origin of all of this? That's a big category of question that people have. The second is meaning. Is there a meaning to life? Are we just molecules stuck in close association with no purpose and no meaning, and that when we die we just decay and go back into the ground? Or do we have souls? Do we have a purpose? Were we made for a purpose? Morality. What is right and wrong? Is anything right and wrong? If we are just molecules in space, there's no right and wrong to a chemical reaction. It just is. So if you're just a materialist, you have a hard time grounding morality. If you're a theist, at least you have a divine moral agent that can set the stage for morality. And that's one of the things we discuss. So that's the third major category of question. The fourth one is destiny. Where does all this go? What do we think about the end times? Not just the end times of the world, but your own end time. What will happen to you when you die? Will you just decay in the ground and go back to your elements, ashes to ashes and dust to dust? Or do you have a soul? Is there an eternal destiny? Why do we have this longing for eternity in our hearts if there's not a way to fulfill that longing? So these are the 4 categories of questions that we get. There's maybe some others, but those are the major categories. And we love to discuss these things on campus. And that's why this hurt so much, because that's what Charlie did. He would go around. He was amazing in that he would gather, thousands of students at his events. And he was able to interact with them and dialogue with them. Well, it's looking like my mics. Let's check the mics.